We've all heard the phrase, you're never too old to stop learning. Well, this morning, ABC's Mike Bonfrem meets a Texas man who's also got an awful lot to teach.
I can hear my master calling, calling, calling.
At 102 years old, George Dawson still remembers the slave songs his grandmother taught him.
Well, she would teach me that I was a little boy. She was a slave.
He has seen and done more than most ever see or do. But he could never read. Through 2 world wars and 18 presidents, he could not read a newspaper. Through the Great Depression and at a time in America when separate meant equal, he couldn't read the signs. So, at an age when most people look back, George Dawson began looking forward to going to school for the very first time. When he was almost 100 years old, he decided to learn how to read. After 98 years, what gave you the motivation to want to learn to read then?
Well, I talked with people, and lots of times they would tell me different things, but they wouldn't tell me the truth. And I wanted to know for myself. And then I began to want to read, and write, and think.
To prove his point, Dawson has only missed 1 day of school since he began attending adult education classes 4 years ago. His teacher picks him up every morning.
In the summertime, he's sitting on the porch waiting for me, because I'm always late. And he expects me to be there sharply at 8 o'clock.
Carl Henry has been Dawson's reading teacher since his first day of school. 65 years old himself, Henry would retire, but for Dawson's inspiration.
Some mornings when I pick him up, I'll be looking depressed or I'll look tired, and he'll say something, "Are you tired?" I'll instantly, no.
W-H-I-S-T-L-E. Will-E, whistle.
What's the whistle? That's right. That's it.
Dawson's fellow students feel the same way.
And he's still learning, and that's what makes me try to, get my act together, like I can learn too, I can still learn too.
And he's a walking history lesson for his younger classmates.
Most African Americans know the troubles, the trials and tribulations, but they're not bitter. They simply think of how far they've come and so forth. And in Mr. Dawson's case, when he tells stories like these, he doesn't tell them with any bitterness. He just simply tells you what actually happened.
You have lived through 3 centuries. Have people changed much?
Ooh, quite a bit, whole lot. I've seen lots of things go on that I wouldn't like to see now.
Dawson saw lynching on the streets of his hometown when he was just a boy.
They hung Pete, burned him, drug him. Oh, they killed on birds.
They hung him right in front of you, right?
Yes, right. I seen all of that, and I didn't care to see.
He's witnessed how far we've come, like when he got to see one of the 20th century's greatest heroes.
Jack Rawson changed it. He's the first colored man who went through baseball with the white. I went to see him.
And that was something else, I suspect.
That's right. That gave me a better outlook on it.
2 years ago, a school teacher saw a newspaper article about Dawson and contacted him about writing a book about his life. What is his secret?
He has no secrets. He lives day to day, and it's the simple things in life. I think what I've learned is just be grateful for each day. It's as simple as that.
The title of the book, Life is So Good, pretty well sums up Dawson's philosophy. Do you worry about anything?
Nothing to worry with me.
How can that be?
I enjoy my life and live a good life and have never been arrested, never been in jail, nobody to bother me.
You don't smoke or drink?
Don't smoke or neither drink.
But I understand you eat what you want, right?
I eat anything I want to eat, anytime I want to eat, night or day.
In the course of everybody's life, they have a little bit of luck. And you've had 102 years. What's been your luckiest day?
I'm telling you, every day has been my lucky day, every day.
What a life. In Style Fashion, next.
When a Dallas man decided he wanted to learn to read and write, he had already lived nearly a century. That fact deeply touched a Port Townsend teacher. Now together, they are proving you're never too old to learn. For 98 years, George Dawson did just about everything with his hands except sign his name.
Men would tell me, say, well, they said, well, you have to make an X.
He worked, raised a family, understood nearly everything except the written word.
I didn't have no education. That was one thing. Couldn't read.
Couldn't read or write.
I learned everything but running and learning to read and write.
That was the only thing you didn't know.
Didn't know.
So 4 years ago,
I went to school.
he was 98 years old. You didn't think you were too old?
No, I never think about you too old. If you got 5 senses, just like anybody else. I figure if you learn, I can too.
How could someone have this courage to just start school at 98?
Port Townsend teacher Richard Glaubman read about George Dawson in the newspaper. Couldn't get him out of his mind. So he called Dallas, Texas, where George Dawson lives.
I thought of this man born in 1898 and going to school, and to think of what he must have seen in his lifetime, just from a historical perspective, was just incredible to think about.
Incredible indeed.
When I was a boy, a little old boy, about 8, 9 years old, 9, 10 years old, I saw a lynching. Pete Spearman was lynched. He was drugged, lynched, and burned.
You saw that?
I saw that.
Incredibly too, perhaps, George Dawson and Richard Glaubman became friends.
My life experience has all been in the second half of this century. And we grew up, as you said, in totally different lives, too.
So then what was the connection? What is the connection?
What is my life?
That's maybe the connection. I had to find out what is your life. And
Now they have written a book together called Life is So Good, a story that has transfixed an entire community.
Please welcome to the stage Mr. George Dawson, Carl Henry, and Richard Glaubman.
When Dallas held its annual African-American read-in, they took center stage.
You'd never come over like that during the middle of the workday.
They shared the stage with actor LeVar Burton, a champion of literacy. Burton read from their book.
That moment was as close as we could ever get to all of us just being people. Not colored and white people, just people.
This is a man who has seen the worst that this world, and America in particular, has to offer, and yet, and still, there is no bitterness, there is no anger, there is no rancor in his heart. It's phenomenal.
Life is so good, but I believe it's going to get better.
A testimony, perhaps, to the extraordinary power of learning to read.
that's great. Good job.
George Dawson's story may be turned into a television movie. Actor LeVar Burton has optioned the rights to it. The American dream is still so powerful, many people risk their lives to get here. And so far this year, 3 Chinese immigrants have died inside a cargo container shipped to Seattle.